Hello, lovely people. Logan here with Presently Impermanent. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the power of surrender and letting go. And this is a really interesting topic for me because one thing that a lot of people have prided me on in my journey, and I've gone through a lot of different shifts in the past 5 to 6 years. Probably had over 15 different jobs, and on paper, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, wow, that's a red flag." But in light of this video, I'm going to explain to you why I've been able to make so many shifts throughout my life and actually get to where I am now. The big thing is actually related to letting go. It's letting go of identity. It's letting go of believing that we have to be a certain type of way. It's letting go of all of the pressure. And really it's letting go of negative beliefs that are keeping you in a situation that you don't want to be in. And so one of the big things that I've seen with people who are just not living in their authentic joy is that they want control. And it doesn't matter what type of person you are, we all fall victim to this. We all in some way will try and cling on to control. For example, if you have worked your whole entire life, actually I have a perfect example of this. A coworker I used to work with, his name was Brian. Um, I was a nurse with him. We worked in the intensive care unit together. He worked in the intensive care for much longer than me. I was only um, in that kind of work for 2 years. But when I knew Brian, he he told me a story about how he had this house. And Brian was a very talented musician. He played all different types of instruments. He would play in the local plays, um, a bunch of instruments so that they could have the performance. And the interesting thing about Brian was a fire happened in the city and it burned down a lot of people's homes. And he lost all of his instruments. He lost everything he'd worked for. He spent all of this time, all of his energy working for all of these things, right? That he thought would make him happy. And then when it all burned down, he actually had to come to the realization that one, he wasted his time, and two, he had nothing. And so the thing was, in the beginning, he probably didn't have much on the inside. He didn't have a strong relationship with himself, so that he worked and worked and worked to get those things. And when he acquired those things, he was still empty. But the burning down of the house was really the symbolism of him trying to hold on to too much control. And I'm not telling this story to put any blame on Brian. I'm telling this story because this is what can happen if we allow our minds to focus much more on us running the show than on God or the universe running the show. The thing is, when we can start to look at life as a game, it becomes a game. And I already believe it is a game. And my life has become much more powerful with that belief than when my life was under the thought that uh, there's really nothing here to life than pleasure and and pain, right? And so what actually ended up happening with Brian, he self deleted. He removed himself from Earth. That had a very profound impact on me. Actually, if it wasn't for Brian, I wouldn't be here right now. He was one of the most pivotal pillars in my life at that time. I was really sick actually with eczema, and I couldn't find any answers. I had kind of been on the edge of like believing in God, but almost kind of being an atheist as well. And I was very, I would say, spiritually lost. And the loss of my spirituality just came from not really having any faith or belief. The only faith that I did have was that the life I was living was not how life was meant to be. That was the deepest faith I had. And when Brian left, he really that was really a kick in the ass for me to say I'm not going to go down this route. It was almost like he was a martyr for me. And when I saw that, I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to go do big things. And so that really changed everything for me. And as I as I started making very scary decisions, um, I began to let go. And the letting go and having the courage to let go, it really is courage. Courage occurs not in spite of fear, but wait, how does it go? Courage is not the absence of fear, but acting in spite of it. Yeah. So every time I made a big decision in my life that I was afraid of, it was actually the right decision. And a lot of times fear can be the the lighthouse for you. If you're really afraid of something, usually it's pointing in the direction of something you need to do. And for me, that was quitting a job that I put 5 years into school and an extra 2 years into practice. And everyone told me I shouldn't quit. There were a couple people that were just like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna go move to Colombia. We're really happy for you." And then the rest of my coworkers were all kind of just like, "You're crazy." And that decision for me was it wasn't my decision. I could feel myself being guided and pushed. If you guys have ever done something out of just instinct, like have you ever woken up one day and the day is just flying? And it's not flying by because a lot of things are happening to you. It's just you're in such a flow, and this is getting done, that's getting done. You see someone on the street, you give them a high five, and your energy just feels so good. Well, the same thing can happen even if your energy doesn't feel good. When you just fall into flow with the universe of moving to your next evolution. And so for me, when I got pushed to South America, I didn't really know why. And when I showed up, I had about a month of partying and kind of staying in my old patterns. And then COVID hit and everything got shut down. And I got locked in an apartment with 4 other roommates. And while I was there, started entrepreneurship, which I was afraid of. I started meditating every day. I started doing breath work. I started doing more yoga. Um, I started cleaning up my diet significantly. And my body started changing. My level of consciousness started changing. I started really investing in myself, paying for coaches. And all of that was just a result of me letting go. And it was really letting go of the identity that I was a nurse. And it was letting go of the identity that I was this American living in California my whole life. All of that can get shifted at any moment. What I learned during my recent Vipassana retreat, if you haven't seen that video, it's on the channel, is that every single millisecond, every time we blink, in between those blinks, the subatomic particles that make us up are multiplying and changing with the number 1 and then 22 zeros added to it. That's the amount of times it changes within a blink. That's how much we change. And I actually practiced with this in the Vipassana session. I was sitting there for an hour of meditating, not being able to move, in a lot of pain. And I just tell myself, I've changed, I've changed, I'm changing now, I'm changing now. And every time I would utter that in my head, I would no longer feel the pain for a very split second. But it was the belief was actually matching the feeling. And I was letting go. But in order to not experience the pain long term, we have to keep letting go. And so I don't know what it is for you that you need to let go of, but I can tell you the people that I'm spending time with now, a lot of my friends are very intuitive. They are all falling more and more into the premise of we don't have any control. We can't control other people around us. We can't control how they react to us. We can't control the weather. We can't control the government. We can't control anything, really. The only thing we can control is how we react internally to the external world. That's really the most control we have. And so when we attach ourselves to something that we really want and we don't get it, that's because we're trying to control something. And a really cool thing that I saw recently with one of my closest friends, and I'm really proud of him for this, is a very successful entrepreneur, has been working like very hard for a very long time. And a couple of times him and I we would work really hard, and then we kind of go, this doesn't feel right. We need more joy in our lives. And then we'd go and we'd kind of like take our foot off the gas for a little bit, and then we'd fall kind of, it was a lot of tension for us to take our foot off the gas. It didn't feel right with all of the hustle culture and all these people telling us, oh yeah, you got to put in the work, more work than anyone else if you want to succeed. So we'd take our foot off the gas, we'd feel a little bit better, and then we'd almost not necessarily self-sabotage, but we'd somehow find ourselves falling back into the pattern of like, oh no, we got to grind, we got to have the grind set. And it's always been a hard balance for us. But recently, this friend, for a week, he just said, I'm going to sit in the tension of doing absolutely nothing. And he's tried this before, and I've seen him try it many times, and it's worked. But this was the time where he actually fully let go. And the crazy thing was, within 1 week, he essentially had somebody who would have been the perfect partner for him in business show up at his doorstep, like without him asking or talking or anything. Just one day, he was having so much fun, and he got a message on Instagram, and they set up a call, and now they're working together. And it's going to be absolutely massive for the business. And so there is no shortage of examples like that in my own life, and examples that I've heard from friends and clients. But it's really a matter of just believing that the path is already laid out. And there's very interesting concepts online about like what happens when we die and stuff like that. Free will, do we actually have it? All of these things. There's not a religious group, but there's a text called the Kabbalah. And I really, really like the way it looks at the world. Essentially, it looks at the world, and it's very similar to reality transurfing if you've ever read that book, but it looks at the world in the way of every single thing in our reality is like a movie set. So all these movie sets are laid out. We can't change the movie set. The only thing we can do is change which movie set we're in. So there's infinite realities. So one day, if I walk into a movie set, let's say it's this room, and I shoot the same video, but I'm in a different mood, it'll be a completely different video, and it'll go onto YouTube, and it'll get a completely different viewership, or it won't get any views at all. But if I'm in my highest state, if I'm at peace within, if I'm resonating very well with the people that need to hear from me that day, and I'm in full alignment with myself, that video is going to go to a different movie. And it could get posted, it could get tons of views, it could get me clients, it could connect me with somebody. That is the difference. And so, depending on where our energetic state is towards the world, towards God, towards the universe, that is directly going to correlate with which movie we're showing up in. And when we can learn to let go of the control, the perceived control, we don't have control. We don't have control over anything but our emotions. When we can let go of all the things we want to control, all of the outcomes that we're not getting, and just sit in the tension that things will work out for us, it starts with faith that there is something bigger and that the path will unfold as long as we do the work we need to do. We still have to put in the reps. We still have to go and do things. But it's really following our highest excitement. Most people know exactly what they want to do and what they need to do. They don't necessarily know the whole 10-year vision, and that's where a lot of people get stuck. But for example, there was a coaching call the other day, and one of the guys was talking about like the big thing that he wanted was a type of car. But before he talked about the car, he was actually talking about one of the things that he's had on the list for a while is a trip to Poland. And then he brought up the car, and he was talking about like, yeah, I really want the car. I don't want to focus too much on it, all this stuff. But what he really needed to do was go to Poland. That's what was calling him. It's something that kept coming up. And the car wasn't a thing that would give him more adventure and zest in life. And a lot of things that we focus on as humans are these external things that are going to give us good feelings. Now, for example, he's like, I really want this car because it's going to allow me to do a road trip, hop on a boat, and then I get to go to Europe. It's like, oh yeah, that car is almost a symbol and a totem for an experience you want to have. But a lot of people are focusing on items, right? I want this really big house that's going to make me happy. You're going to have the house for a week and then you're going to get bored of it. Versus experiences that God's calling you on. Like for me, my life has gotten infinitely better living abroad because I've met so many amazing people. And it was actually, the microphone just cut out. I was saying traveling was actually my heart's highest calling. And that's what took me to have really amazing experiences. And if I didn't follow that highest calling, I would not be here shooting these videos, having all these extremely crazy experiences. I went on such a roller coaster the past 4 years. And now it's really cool because I have a hero's journey. And if you look at the work of Joseph Campbell, um, all movies, all stories, they have a hero's journey. It has a story arc. It has depth to it. And without having a proper story arc, the story doesn't resonate with the human experience. And so it's really about being able to go and get your hands dirty. The really funny thing, this mic just died and I lost like 5 minutes of the video. This keeps happening. I should probably get a new mic. But the thing is, I'm just letting go of the attachment to needing things to go a certain way. Because the funny thing is, I talked about a completely different topic in those last 5 minutes than I'm talking about now. And so that really is the art of letting go. We don't have control over many things. Um, we can only control what's going on inside of us. We can't control any people. Everything is impermanent. You cannot control when your mom's going to pass away. You can't control when your dad's going to pass away. You can't control when you're going to pass away. All you can do is have faith that life is actually meant to be fun and that life can actually be enjoyable if you surrender fully. And when you do start to surrender, incredible things will happen. Sometimes very difficult things will happen, and that's part of the process too. It's letting go of old identities. When a shake, when a shake, when a snake sheds its skin, I haven't talked to a snake recently. I don't speak Parseltongue anymore, but when a snake sheds its skin, I would imagine it's not very comfortable. It's going through a metamorphosis, right? And so it's actually releasing the old skin because it's becoming bigger and more powerful. And that's what happens when we let go. So if you're interested in potentially working with me in a closer and more intimate setting, I have some links below for one-on-one, one-off calls, or if you want to do longer coaching, that's also an option for specific clients. And I also have coaching tests, personality tests that you can look into from a company called Logos. You can click the link below to check that out, but those will really help you identify the areas of attachment that you still have in life. And a lot of people that I talk to don't quite understand their personality in depth to the point where they understand their archetypes. Like for me, one of my archetypes is adventure. So when I'm not having fun in life, when things get really, really dense, it's because I'm not adventuring and I'm not going and meeting people and having cool experiences. Now, for a different person like a sage, they probably need to spend more time reading and like studying and sharing that with the world. So when you understand that, it's much easier to ensure that you're in the correct environment and you're in like the correct workplace and you're doing what your soul's calling really is, and that makes life a lot more enjoyable, and it also allows you to surrender more. So if you're interested in any of those things, link below, and I will see you tomorrow. Ciao.